Tonight the King of France will write a single word in a small book, and for 200 years people will laugh at him for it. You are the man who carries his candles. Right now you are 3 rooms away from him, on your knees at a sconce, scraping his stubs out of the socket with your thumb. You will not laugh, because you will come to understand that the word is honest, and honest is so much worse. It is the 14th of July, 1789, and this is Versailles. In your apron there is a stub of beeswax, still warm, still soft at the edge, where it guttered. It came off the king's own sconce an hour ago, and it belongs to you. That is the law of this house, and men have been thrown out of these gates over a handful of wax. 20 kilometres away, something is happening today that will end the world you are standing in. Nobody in this palace will notice, not because they are fools, because the palace has no way to notice. You are 11 the first time your father takes you up the service stair at dusk with a taper in your hand. He does not tell you that you are entering the greatest household in Europe. He tells you the arithmetic. This many rooms, this many sconces, this many flames. 8,000 in the great gallery alone, he says, the night they lit all of it. His own father stood in a doorway and counted. And when they burn down, the ends are ours. Not a gift, he says, a right. You learn what the right is worth before you learn to read. 1 good wax candle costs what a soldier earns in the better part of a week, and at a single ball, this court has burned 24,000 in a night. The stubs go in a shallow tin tray. The tray goes down the back stairs. The wax goes into the town, and the town gives you coin, and the coin becomes bread. You are 11 years old, and you understand something clean and strange and true. Your wage is made of the king's light. What your father does not say, you watch. The stewards would rather sell that wax themselves, so every few weeks there is a quiet war on the back stairs over a tin tray. A word, a look, a count that does not match. A man dismissed and gone by morning and never spoken of again. Your father is not a gentle servant in a gentle house. He is a man who fights, constantly and almost silently, over candle ends. He will not raise his voice where the king might hear it. He will not yield an ounce of wax to a steward in a corridor where the king never comes. You think this is a small life. It is not. It is the only ground he owns, and he holds it. Above the back stairs there is the other thing, and it is not a mood or a habit. It is a machine. Every act in this palace has an owner and an hour. There is a rite for the king waking, the lever, performed in front of men who have waited years for the right to be in the room. There is an order to who may hand him his shirt, and men will hate each other for life over it. He dines at the grand couvert while strangers file past to watch him eat, because that is what a Tuesday is. And you learn the machine as light. Dusk means flame. The coucher means the snuffer. The small tin clap of the bell coming down, and then the smell that will be the smell of your whole life. Hot beeswax gone sweet, and under it the burnt hair stink of a wick pinched out. You can walk into a room with your eyes shut and tell how long it has been lit. You are not a person in that room. You are a step in a procedure, and there is a deep, terrible comfort in that. Your father dies in the winter, quietly, the way servants are permitted to die, and you learn the thing he never said out loud. The office does not pass to you by law. There is no paper. It passes because someone decides, so you stand in a cold corridor in front of the first valet of the chamber, and you wait, and the waiting is the longest hour of your life. Then he closes your fingers around your father's brass snuffer and tells you the sconces in the king's antechamber are yours from tonight. That is the whole ceremony. You walk away holding the only inheritance your family has ever had, and you understand the shape of your own life. The place is not yours. It is lent. And it can be taken back by a man in a better coat who simply changes his mind. Twice a month you carry the tray out through a gate and into the town, and this is the only place the world touches you. You have a chandler who buys, and a baker who knows your face, and over the years you measure everything by that short walk. You measure it in bread. In the good years the loaf is a few sous, and the chandler jokes with you. Then the harvest fails, and the winter after, it is the worst anyone can remember. And the loaf costs a laboring man most of what he earns in a day. And the queue outside the baker's is longer than the queue to watch the king eat. Nobody in the palace has to see that queue. You see it every time, holding a tray of wax that came off the wall of a man who has never once wondered what bread costs. One day someone in that town is going to ask you a question about him. And what you do with your mouth in that moment is going to decide the next 30 years of your life. And then one day the chandler asks you, lightly weighing your stubs, not even looking up, what he's like. The king. What is he really like? It would cost you nothing to answer. You are not important enough for anyone to care what you said in a shop. And you say nothing. You smile and you take your coin, and you walk back up the hill. You do this for years, with everyone, because your place is lent, and silence is the rent you pay on it. The chandler stops asking. The baker stops asking. By the time you are 40, nobody in that town has ever heard your voice say one word about the king. You are a man who has trained himself for 30 years not to speak, and you have come to think of that silence as a thing you own. In May of 1789, the Estates General meets, not in Paris, not somewhere far away. Here, in your town, 1,000 men in black coats arguing in a hall that you have to light. In June, they cross the street and swear an oath in a tennis court because the door of their own hall is shut against them, and you can hear the noise of it from the gate. The revolution does not come to Versailles. It starts at Versailles, in your own workplace, and you light it, and you trim its wicks, and you sweep up after it. On the 11th of July, the king dismisses his finance minister, Necker, and you notice it the way you notice everything, as work. More rooms lit later. Men talking after midnight where nobody talks after midnight. You need more candles this week. That is what a revolution looks like from where you stand. The 14th of July, 1789, is a Tuesday, and it happens exactly on time. The lever, on time. The mass, on time. The grand couvert, on time. The king eats, and people watch him eat, because that is Tuesday. All day, 20 kilometers away, the thing you will hear about for the rest of your life is happening. And here nothing is out of place, because nothing is permitted to be out of place. In the afternoon, riders come up the Paris road with dust to their thighs, and in a service corridor you catch a fragment of what one of them is saying, and you do not understand it, but your hands go cold. And you, a man who has not spoken in 30 years, you speak. You stop the first valet of the chamber. You tell him what you heard, and he listens. That is the part nobody would believe. He is not cruel. He does not strike you or send you away. He listens to the whole thing, and he thanks you. And then he tells you the sconces in the Oeil de Boeuf need doing before 6. Go and do the candles. That is what the machine had for you. Not contempt, a task. It had no channel for what you said, so it turned it into work, because work is the only thing it knows how to make. 30 years of silence, and the rent you were paying bought you nothing, because silence was never what held you in place. So you go, and you do the sconces before 6, and at dusk you light every candle in the state apartment, all of them, because it is dusk. And that night, in a small book you will never be allowed to open, the king writes one word. Rien. Nothing. For 200 years people will hold that word up as proof that he was a fool who slept through the fall of his own kingdom. They will be wrong. It is a hunting book. It is a list of what was killed, and on the 14th of July there was no hunt, so there was nothing to write. The word is not blindness, the word is honest. He is a man who had one book, and the book had one column, and the column was for stags. There was no page in that house, not his, not yours, for the other thing. At 2 in the morning, a man comes in off the road in a travelling cloak with mud on his boots. And you are in the corridor with a lantern, and you watch him do the impossible thing. He walks through a door he has no right to open. He wakes the king, whom the rule says you do not wake, and you hear it through a door that is not quite closed. Is it a revolt? No, sire, it is a revolution. And then a silence you can feel through the wood. Later you realize the candles in that room are still burning, an hour past the time the rule says they should have been snuffed. Nobody has told you to snuff them. You stand there with your father's snuffer in your hand, and you look at the light and you let it burn. It costs nothing. It changes nothing. And it is the first order you have ever disobeyed, because at 2 in the morning you finally understand that the rule was never real. It was only ever a habit that everyone agreed to have. In October they come for him. A crowd walks the 20 kilometers out from Paris in the rain, and you watch them from a window. A dark, shifting mass at the gates you have polished your whole life, and you brace for something with a shape. A fight, a fire, an ending you can understand. It does not come. The carriages are loaded. The king goes to Paris, and the noise goes with him, and what is left is worse. The palace is simply empty. There is no one to light for. Nobody announces that it is over. Nobody dismisses you with a speech. The rooms are shut one by one, and no one lights the king's sconces the next evening or ever again. For a while you walk the state apartment out of habit at dusk, in the dark, with a snuffer in your hand and nothing to snuff. Your wage was made of the king's light. Men were ruined over that tray, and then the light went out and the wax was just wax. There is one candle end left in your apron. It came off his wall on the 14th of July. It was never lit. Nobody ever came to put it out.